Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School Podcast. My name is Andrew Claudio, a.k.a. GMAC. And no, this isn't a pregame pod, but we're going to call this for the next 5 Fridays is the preview pod. We are going to be previewing the Knicks' upcoming season, starting to get into some Knicks previews. And I'm going to be joined by a different staffer over at Knicks Film School, our wonderful faculty that I love interacting with on a daily basis, even in the off season when we talk about non-NBA things, which is why it is an honor to bring on. And no, I did not know he was going to dress the way he's dressing. So if you're listening on the podcast feed, you'll be able to see my man, Mr. Mensa, here on the pod in all New York Mets garb. I promise I did not say, hey, we're all your Mets stuff. And yet he just decided to show up and surprise me. That's a Lindor jersey that you got on?
That is absolutely a Francisco Lindor jersey I have on. The rightful NL MVP, Francisco Lindor.
Listen, what Ohtani has done this year is outstanding. Offensively, look, a guy that hits so many home runs and steals so many bases. And then when you go to what he does on the other side, that's right. He doesn't play the field or pitch anymore. He's been a full-time DH. Probably played about a total of 30 minutes of baseball this season, which the pitch clock. But enough of us and our Mets and baseball narratives, and to Yankee fans upset that they have to stare at Mets stuff throughout the pod. I don't care. We are going to talk about the New York Knicks today, and the theme of today, and this is going to be a theme for the next 5 Fridays, is a bit of a top 5 or a top 10, where we pick an aspect of the new look Knicks and we decide where it ranks among the league's best. Because the beauty of where we are in our basketball lives or basketball fan lives, Mensa, this is a top team in the NBA, not just the East, not just the division. No, this is one of the best teams in the NBA. And we're going to try and figure out where it ranks in the NBA across multiple aspects. Today on the pod, we're going to look at the starting 5, the new look starting 5. We're projecting that it's going to, this is where Tibbs could throw us a curveball and Josh Hart starting on opening night, but we could, the face message just made. We're going with the expectation that it's Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. Now, I gotta be honest, we have no idea health-wise where Julius is, where Mitchell Robinson is. We've heard that they should be ready by training camp. I know there's been some floating about Mitch that maybe he might not be ready, but no concrete reporting. That should be the 5 on opening night. Mensa, just this new look starting 5, how bullish are you on it? Let's just start there. As far as as a Knicks starting 5, how do you feel?
Well, I don't think there's any way for anybody to feel about the starting 5 specifically here more than very excited about it. And this is one of the 5 best, conservatively, 5 best starting 5s in the entire NBA. The addition of Mikal Bridges is kind of like you took Deuce McBride's defense, you meshed it with Dante DiVincenzo's offense, and you put it in a basketball player who's 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan. It is just unbelievable how the Knicks have been able to construct this lineup. And of course, there's some serendipity involved with all of these guys going to Villanova University and winning a title together, some of them winning 2 titles. But it's so exciting, and I can't wait to talk about it because this team, the way they put everything together and the way they organized the starting 5, there's so much cohesion. And I think that when we start to go through these lineups, we'll see how important that is, not just having the talent, but having talent that works together. And this is a team that has a starting 5 that more than anything else works together.
You know, I want to shout out Benji because 2 years ago when Brunson was starting to ascend among the league's rankings, obviously in a Knick uniform, he brought up team building and how the best path forward was going to be just surround this dude with defensive wings. And, you know, at the time we were looking at, this is no slander to RJ Barrett, but it was quickly and went and got Josh Hart and that we had Quentin Grimes. And these were average to above average defensive players. There's no all defense candidates in any of the names that I just listed. And then they went out and got Anunoby, and it's oh, that's very clearly an all defense candidate right there. And then they get Mikal Bridges. I gotta say, Mensa, I know the trade happened. I reacted to it on a KFS town hall when it happened. I was being recorded. My actual reaction to it is out there. we did all the content and the reactions and broke down the new look of the team this summer, right? Then they had a press conference for him, a rare Knicks press conference. Then Jalen Brunson had his captain coronation that totally wasn't ridiculous, but I'm okay. I'm here and I'm okay for it. And he was there. And I've seen the Mikal Bridges jersey, and all the 2K videos are floating out of Mikal Bridges. I still cannot believe that they got him. And I still can't believe that this version of the Knicks, it was always like, can we get one of these guys? Like, oh, if it's Anunoby, all right, that takes us out of the Mikal Bridges sweepstakes. There's no way you're going to be able to get Mikal Bridges with Julius Randle out. And now it's like a spoil of riches at the moment, because you have an All-NBA 3-time All-Star in Randle. You have two of the best defensive wings. Like, there's going to be a wings duo conversation and in one of these Friday pods going forward. And I just they did it. They surrounded Jalen Brunson with the perfect two wings. And I went on a pod last night with the Sixth Man show to the Orlando Magic, and they were asking me how you feel about Bridges, and I was like, listen, during the playoffs, Anunoby did his best with Tyrese Maxey and Deuce, like, performed valiantly, and they contained him as a team as best they could. He averaged 29, 6, and 4. I know it's against our religion to talk about Tyrese Halliburton in anything but a defamatory manner, and he gives us a lot of material to do it, right, Mensa?
Of course.
He did kind of put us to bed in Game 6 and Game 7, especially games 4 and 5 where he performed too. Like, he had his way with Deuce McBride in Game 6 and 7, and it's no disrespect to Deuce. It's just like a great player was great. And now we have one of the best point of attack defenders that now allows Anunoby to settle into his role as one of the best off-ball defenders in the league. And just now you put them around two great offensive players that have made all-star teams and all-NBA teams. The center position is where I want to go next here. Like, if they had gotten Hartenstein, this wouldn't be this would be a very quick pod. All right, the Knicks are one. Great. The concerns from Mitch and his health, and then there's an aspect of, is their best lineup with Mitch off the floor? So where does their starting five rank? I just of all the concerns you might have with the starting five, is it solely the center position, or does some of that bleed into Randle? Where do you go with any concerns about the starting five?
Oh, well, so before I talk about my concerns with the starting five, I just wanted to touch on the Mikal Bridges trade.
Yeah, go ahead.
So before even we traded for Mikal Bridges, we traded with a team that we were suing in the Toronto Raptors. And then we traded with the team that we hadn't made a trade with in 41 years. So the next thing for us to do, obviously, is to acquire a player from the Miami Heat, because we're just throwing everything out of the realm of possibility. Right. And anything is on the table now. So it's crazy how this front office has come in and just thrown precedents to the side and said, if you have an asset that we need, we're going to make a deal with you. We're not worried about lawsuits or crosstown rivalries, and that's just really encouraging. But just to get back to the question of where my concerns are with the starting five, I think it's pretty fair to say that the Knicks starting five is not going to be their best five lineup. I think their best five lineup, depending on how often Tibbs goes to it, if he goes to it at all, is going to be those lineups with Julius at the 5, with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby at the wing spots, and Dante and Jalen obviously at the guard spots. But as far as concerns go, I do think Mitchell Robinson is the only concern, and it's not necessarily because he is a bad basketball fit. I think he's a great basketball fit for this unit. It's the health. And then also, one thing people don't realize is just how much Isaiah Hartenstein opened up this offense going forward. Maybe Isaiah Hartenstein does not have the same opportunities to work as an offensive hub if Julius Randle is playing. But even when Julius was playing in January, you saw Isaiah Hartenstein play really well, go to that floater with either hand, pass the ball out, and give Julius some opportunities to attack off the dribble. One thing that DJ likes to point out, DJ Zulo, shout out to him, is that Julius Randle's, I believe, off-ball gravity is what it was called. It was tops in the league, was elite. So we're probably not going to see
97th percentile.
97th percentile. Yeah. Like, so it's not just that Mitchell Robinson, as you know, because the health concerns are always going to be there, whether it's a knee or an ankle or foot. Pretty much guys his height, knee down, you're going to have concerns there. And he really hasn't played more than half of a season I think, 2 of the last 4 seasons. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's had major surgeries in I want to say at least 2 of the last 4 seasons. So that is a concern. But also when he is on the court, the problem is he really can't do anything with the basketball outside of 3 feet. And I wouldn't even trust him to put the ball on the floor. As far as I think his turnover rate with one dribble is just obscene, right? So you really just want him catching and shooting. And that is, catching and finishing, I should say. And the Knicks lineup right now doesn't really have a guy who likes to throw lobs. I know Julius can do it. He's not really his game. I'm sure Jalen can do it as well, but there's no RJ Barrett on this lineup anymore who would look for Mitchell Robinson in that lob scenario. There's no Emmanuel Quickly who would look for him there. So the Knicks will have to find new ways to utilize him. And I have all faith and all trust in Tom Thibodeau because he's earned it, especially with where the fan base was with him 2 years ago to where we are now. He has earned our respect, and he's earned the right to work these lineups the way he wants to work them. But as far as concerns go, I think the only real concern that you can have is with Mitchell Robinson. But also one thing that just got to go back to this Mikal Bridges thing. You were pointing out that in game 6 and 7 of the Indiana Pacers series, Tyrese Halliburton just had his way. Not only is it important that we have Mikal Bridges because he has the skill set, but if you look at the durability of a Mikal Bridges as opposed to the durability of a Mitchell Robinson, you're looking at a guy who will be on the court for the last game of the season for the New York Knicks. Whether that game is in June, whether that game is in April, it doesn't matter when the season ends. Mikal Bridges will be on the court for you. And you know that with Jalen Brunson, who's finished the season out with us, he was playing. The only thing that kept him off the floor was a broken hand, right? So, and with Josh Hart, same thing with he had, I think, a core muscle issue. You know that those guys are going to give their all, and you can count on Mikal Bridges to be there on the final game of the season. And the way our last 2 seasons have ended, me personally, I think that it's not unreasonable to say that the New York Knicks should have been in the last 2 Eastern Conference Finals, but health kept us out of them because Julius Randle in both seasons and then half the lineup in this last season. So more importantly, not just the fit, because the fit is excellent, not just the talent, but the durability and the availability. We've seen how important that is, which is something that we as Knicks fans have taken for granted because our team hasn't needed to be durable because we just haven't been that good. But now that we have title contention, title hopes, it's very important to have guys who we know are going to be there, especially with an OG Anunoby who has spotty health, a guy like Mitchell Robinson who has spotty health. Julius Randle doesn't have spotty health, but the two, I would just sit him in all games concerning the Miami Heat. Just don't play. If he plays 78 games, I'm fine with that. If the other 4 are just not against the Miami Heat. But yeah, it's really important that we have a Mikal Bridges, not just for the talent, but because you know that he's going to be available on the final game of the season.
And that's where it changes the perspective of the team and just for the fan base overall. You mentioned the death lineup that a lot of us have been pointing to that we hope they go to. And I think the roster just kind of dictates that they have to at points this season. But I'm just going to throw in, you said DiVincenzo was the 2 guard option. I'm just not going to rule out Josh Hart at the 2 isn't going to be important. Josh Hart instead of Randall isn't going to be a good option. Guy's been a plus minus god for a lot of his time as a Knick. So there's options. It's why going into now this conversation of where the starting 5 that we're talking about ranks, where we're not including DiVincenzo, not including Deuce McBride, not including Josh Hart, and just these 5 is going to be fascinating because the strength of this Knicks team, while it has a really good starting 5, potentially even great starting 5, they have a really great top 8, and it's why their depth is going to be, I think, the differing factor in some of the teams that we mentioned today. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to go through the entire NBA. No, I'm kidding. We're going to do a little draft. Okay. We're going to take, each going to take 5 and try to land a top 10. And it's with the context of why we took this team instead of the Knicks. And then after the Knicks are drafted, why with the Knicks we would put ahead of said team. So, and we're going to, I have I've multiple Cleaning the Glass and NBA reference and basketball reference and NBA.com tabs open. We are also going to just talk about basketball and not the full spreadsheets, but that's not to diminish that. I know that's the thing. I just want to be clear. We will talk about basketball on this pod. Okay. Mensa, we got to decide who goes first. And you know how we do it with the convoluted system known as high card draw. Shout out to our friends at Las Vegas Casino. Loved my time at Summer League this year. Mensa, your card. And you know what? I owe you a shuffle. Hold on. I owe you a shuffle. There you go. I shuffled. Okay. Mensa, your card is a 5 of hearts, 5 of Josh Hearts. Okay. And then my card is a king of Josh Hearts. Okay. So I get to go first. Mensa, I have talked a lot of shit about this team over the last couple of months. I met up with the How About Them Celtics podcast. I met up with them in Las Vegas and just spent the entire 2 days that I saw them. We went out to dinner and I just spent the whole time so what is it going to be like when we beat you by 30 on ring night? What is it going to be like when you guys raise a banner and then don't win your home opener? I have to take the Celtics number one. They're the team that won the title, one of the best lineups seen last season. And obviously I'm talking about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. I will say that's not the lineup we will see on opening night. So that's the context we're using is would I take Horford and those 4 over the Knicks starting 5? It's a good conversation to have and a fascinating moment in the terms of who's better and who would win a series. I'm not going to poke holes in the Porzingis health conversation when we do have an Anunoby and a Randall and a Mitch Robinson in our conversation. But respect to the champs, I will take the Boston Celtics with my first pick.
Yeah, I think it had to. I think their net rating last year was top 10 all time or something insane like that.
Yeah.
So you just gotta go with them. And then it also helps that 25% of the 2024 Olympic basketball champion gold medalists were Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
And their quote unquote best player, their MVP candidate, barely played. They use the 2 role players that they have more often than Jason Tatum, which of course became the conversation about it. I have the exact data in 1,293, so almost 1,300 possessions. The starting 5 that I'm talking about was plus 12 last season with a 121 points per 100 possessions, which is good for the 72nd percentile, which is not the best. I will say there's another team that I'm very curious where they go in this that we're going to talk about, and I'm bullish on them this season. I don't know if I should be as a Knicks fan, but as an objective NBA fan, I am bullish on them. But we'll see where it goes. Mensa, you have the second pick. How brave are you feeling right now?
There's only one team I could take here. This is the Knicks Film School Podcast. And I do think that it will end up being a toss-up between I think the next 3 teams that will be taken, including the team that I'm about to take. There's kind of a toss-up in terms of where they will land, especially, maybe 4 teams you could say. But there are 3 teams that I have in mind. But I'm going to take the New York Knicks here. I love the New York Knicks as a fan, but I also... the reason why I'm taking them over the other 2 teams here is because your starting 5 of Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson can be their best selves uninhibited with the other 4 guys on the court. None of those guys have to sacrifice any part of the best parts of their game, I should say. None of them will have to sacrifice anything. Jalen Brunson, when Julius Randle went down, had to sacrifice his catch and shoot game. With Julius Randle on the court, he's an elite catch and shoot player. Mikal Bridges, I think, is the worst catch and shoot guy of between him and OG, and Jalen at 7 attempts per game. No, 5.6 attempts from 3 at 38.7%. So your worst catch and shoot guy is shooting 38%. And you're starting 5. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And then one thing that I'm really bullish about with Mikal Bridges, because I have this tweet that went viral in Netslandia, because I said that
not a very big Landia, is it? Hold on, not a very huge Landia. That is
not at all. It's more like a cul-de-sac. That's cul-de-sac. Okay. Is what we'll call it. I had a tweet that said that because Knicks fans were really fawning after Mikal Bridges in the context of trading him. I'm trading Julius Randle for him. And I said 2 things. I said the Knicks would more likely move the team from New York than trade Julius Randle to the Nets. This is before I believe they would make a trade. And the second thing I said was Knicks fans who want to trade for Mikal Bridges, again, in the context of assuming Julius Randle is going out, aim higher, you deserve better, right? We got Mikal Bridges now. The reason why I'm so bullish about it is because Mikal Bridges is not your second option. He's your third option. He's sliding in to the RJ Barrett role. And we all remember, we don't have to go over the numbers, how poor a catch and shoot basketball player RJ Barrett was. We're replacing him with a better catch and shoot player. And when I say catch and shoot player, I don't just mean a guy who can catch and shoot. I mean a player who plays out of the catch and shoot the way a Dante DiVincenzo did. When we saw not only would he catch and shoot, but he could pump fake, he could take one or two dribbles, get to the rim, dunk on you. He could shoot from the mid range. He could pass out of the catch and shoot, right? Kind of like the way I look at catch and shoot players is the same way I look at pick and roll basketball players, like how you have a Chris Paul who's a maestro who can kill you from the mid range, who can hit the pocket pass. It's not just one option out of the catch and shoot. So guys like Dante DiVincenzo and Mikal Bridges are elite catch and shoot operators, is what I would call them. So you replace RJ Barrett with an elite catch and shoot operator in Mikal Bridges, and I'm as bullish on him as when you look at the 2008 Celtics, right? When you look at a guy like Ray Allen, who, if Ray Allen was the second best player on the Boston Celtics, they probably don't win a championship, right? If you have Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, you're probably not winning a championship. You might be a contender still. If you had Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, you're probably not winning a championship. You might be an Eastern Conference contender. Then this team does not have a Kevin Garnett. Jalen Brunson is really good. I don't think he's Kevin Garnett, right? Kevin Garnett was the Defensive Player of the Year that season. I think fourth in MVP voting. Excellent player. And that Celtics team went 66-16. But what made Ray Allen so lethal was his ability to play off of those two guys. And I think we're going to see a lot of that from Mikal Bridges, because I believe that RJ Barrett, as a New York Knick, over the course of his time as a New York Knick, has a higher usage rate than Mikal Bridges had at a Brooklyn Net last season. Right. So now Mikal Bridges has more opportunity to operate out of that catch and shoot, more opportunity to work off of Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson. And one thing about Mikal Bridges that I think is going to take this lineup to a new level. I mean, when you watch the Knicks last season, there was a lot of standing around and waiting for the ball to come to them. Mikal Bridges is like Travis Kelce, where he will pass the ball to a guy and he'll see if the clock is running down, he will move himself along the 3-point line into the line of sight of the person who has the ball. So it's going to be a lot easier for a guy like Julius Randle to get assists, because Mikal Bridges is just going to move into his line of sight and make the pass really simple. It's not going to have to be anything complicated, or it's not going to be like RJ Barrett or Manuel Quickley. And I'm not saying this to disparage those guys. Everybody knows I think the world of those two players. But as far as I'm talking specifically about the fit with Julius Randle here, they're not like, though they kind of like stood around, clapped for the ball. That's not going to be what Mikal Bridges does. Mikal Bridges is going to move. He's going to find the soft spot in that cover 2 zone, just to go back to the Travis Kelce analogy, and really play and show you how we can make the game of basketball more easy. And we know that he has won championships at the college level, and he knows how to play off of Jalen Brunson. He knows how to play off of Dante. He knows how to play off of Josh. And these guys are not in the starting 5. But speaking specifically about what he will be able to do with a Jalen Brunson and next to a Julius Randle, that is going to be so effective, and it's almost going to be like a breath of fresh air to see guys who are willing to play off the ball. Mikal Bridges, more than RJ Barrett, is willing to play off the ball, and that's going to take this team to another level. Another thing about Mikal Bridges and his addition here, and I'm sorry to make this a Mikal Bridges rant here, and I'll wrap up shortly, but this may be the first time where he's probably going to be the third best defender in a starting 5. Mitchell Robinson is a more impactful defender than Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby is a more impactful defender than Mikal Bridges. If I remember watching last season how Dante DiVincenzo was able to operate as like a roving corner safety kind of guy, he'd be able to shoot the passing lanes and get up the court and create fast breaks for us. Now we're replacing his defensive acumen with Mikal Bridges' defense. Mikal Bridges is that sounds really weird. With Mikal's defensive acumen, and this is a guy who was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist just 2 seasons ago and an All-NBA level defender. So you're looking at a player who, as a defender, is now more like the second or third best player. And on the offensive end is the second or third best player, which is really where he's fitted on the offensive role. But defensively, we're going to watch him be able to gamble a little bit more. We're going to watch him be able to play a lot more aggressive at the point of attack because of the two guys behind him who may even be better defenders than him. And because of all of that, because of the addition of Mikal Bridges to this starting five and the excellence that those guys already had about them, I think he's going to take us to another level. And that is why the synergy of it all is why I'm taking the New York Knicks as my first pick in this draft.
So this is going to come as a shock to you, but the reason, I'll take people behind the scenes, the reason that we're drafting today rather than just listing our top fives is because throughout my research today and the different lineup combinations that I think the Knicks can go to, and looking at the loaded NBA that we currently have, I think I have the Knicks at 6 for their starting five. Well, and specifically their starting five, which is why, like everything you just said, I agree with everything. I'm bullish on Mikal Bridges. I think him and Anunoby are definitely a top 5 wing duo in the league, maybe top 3 wing duo. I'm obviously I love Jalen and I'm high on what Julius with all of these guys could be. If I made the argument that the Knicks will still have a great starting five, if you remove one of 4 of the guys, any of the 4, outside of Jalen Brunson. So if Mikal Bridges, for the first time in his career goes down, well, okay, Dante or Josh Hart, you step in and I think we'd be fine. If Bridges were if Anunoby, which shouldn't even say when potentially Anunoby misses time. All right, Josh Hart or DiVincenzo or even Deuce step in and we're fine. We saw what the lineup looked like with Anunoby at the 4. A lot of people have even thought that that's the conversation around the NBA, that if Julius were to be missing, you have Anunoby step in, and then you have Bridges at the 4, Bridges at the 3, and then either DiVincenzo or Hart. And then the Mitch, that's the whole conversation on Mitchell Robinson, is that if you take him out and put a smaller wing out there, you have the chance to go small and create a potentially really good lineup. As a result, as much as I think those 4 are going to be outstanding this year, their depth is what I'm the most bullish on. And there are some teams that are really top heavy that I had to put them in a different context. I'm not saying the margin is so much greater that the Knicks at 2 is insane. I had to be honest with myself. And it's I don't think the strength of this team is going to be their starting 5. It's going to be their closing 5. Now, at times that their closing 5 could be their starting 5. It's going to be matchup dependent. I know who I want guarding Embiid in a lot of crunch time. It's Mitchell Robinson. He did a great job guarding Embiid when he wasn't trying to break his ankle during the playoffs. I know who I want guarding Jokic in certain situations. It's probably going to be Mitchell Robinson or a bigger body in that sense. So, I knew you were. Listen, there's nobody that loves the Knicks more than Mensa. I would argue that, and so I had a feeling you would go really high with this. But you now allowed me to take who I have as my number 2 best starting 5 in the NBA, and it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I think you could argue the same as the Knicks, where the Hartenstein-Caruso aspect of it. One of them might not start. If you want to put Lou Dort on the bench, he might not start. But that was already one of the best starting 5s in the league last year. They're another team that can beat you with depth. They go 9, 10, 11 deep on that team. They have an MVP candidate. They have a perennial All-NBA candidate. They have J-Dub for most improved player. Shout out to our friends at BetUS is a I got to find the odds, but there's a sneaky first-time All-Star bet for him if you want to throw it out there as far as Jalen Williams getting most improved player. But there's a reason why when they got Hartenstein, the power structure shifted for me, where it was if he came back to the Knicks, I would probably have them as my title favorite. He went to OKC. Okay, now they're my title favorite. So. And look, there's going to be games where he doesn't close. If you believe the people in Oklahoma City, there are games he might not even start, where Chet will start at the 5 and they'll go to Caruso at 2. But this is a team that won 58 or 57 games in a loaded Western Conference, and they didn't subtract really, other than Josh Giddey, who was one of their liabilities last year. They added Hartenstein and Alex Caruso, 2 of the more impactful players in the league. So I got to go down with my second pick.
They would have been my second pick if this was not a Knicks podcast and I didn't be an unabashed Knicks homer. But the reason why I went with the Knicks over the Thunder is because of what you said it's kind of clunky, the starting five. As far as talent goes, to me, they are unequivocally the most talented starting five in basketball. They have Caruso, they have Hartenstein, and they added them to Chet, to J-Dub, and to SGA. But when I think about it, I feel like they made the floor smaller for a guy like SGA, who is a phone booth bucket. He does not need much space to get off, but in terms of just, is it ideal for him to play in that starting five? I don't think that it is. I don't think that starting five is ideal for any of the guys, to be honest. You want Chet at the five, maybe for Caruso, because he has guys he can operate off in the catch and shoot, especially with Hartenstein, who can pass to him. You have SGA and you have J-Dub. But I feel like there is going to be, I feel like even though the talent is so high, the sum of that five is less than the parts. And it doesn't matter. They can have diminishing returns and still win a title. But that's why I went with, as far as like starting fives go, I took cohesion into account. But again, it's going to be, I have them as a 65 plus win team this year. They're going to be a wrecking ball. But I took that, but that's the talent thing. But I was focusing on starting fives, and cohesion to me did matter, which is why I put the Knicks above the Thunder.
Well, so that's the best argument for you, is that the Knicks added a guy that if we're just doing starting five, the Knicks added a guy that Jalen Brunson has a history with. So there's no like learning how to play with your best player to go on with Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. And the fit, like Anunoby had never played a game with the Knicks. And from the first quarter he played with them, I was like, oh, this is perfect. He's just a natural fit. If you listen to the Roommates pod, as soon as they got Anunoby, he hadn't learned the playbook yet, hadn't known the offense yet. He was like, all right, I'm just going to cut. And you could see a similar cohesion right away, potentially, with Mikal Bridges being into the fold. I'm higher on OKC's starting five. I will say the next couple are not... I would have the Knicks ahead of them in my like power rankings for the year. It's a starting five conversation we're having. But I would like the Knicks top 8 I would have, which is why I'm very curious where you go with your next pick.
So with my next pick, I'm going to go with the Macri Memorial Dallas Mavericks. I got to take... Whoa!
Okay.
I'm going with Dallas. The other team that was in the starting five, in the NBA Finals, they were, and let's be clear, they were a 5 seed last year, but cohesion means a lot to me, and their starting five, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford. And I just think that is a team that you got 3 satellites around Luka Doncic, and then you also have Derek Lively, who is Tyson Chandler reborn, Kyrie Irving, who can get another phone booth bucket, and maybe the best offensive player in basketball, and Luka Doncic, who elevates that group to a new level. This is a new role for Klay Thompson, but if you were to put Klay Thompson next to anybody in the league and expect him to extend his career, it would be Luka Doncic. And then, of course, you have the closer's closer in Kyrie Irving. Really love this unit. They were in the NBA Finals last season. Just the cohesion of it all. Everybody from game one is going to know where to go and how to play, right? Klay Thompson has been maybe the best, you can argue one of the 3-5 best off-ball players in NBA history. He's going to play with a genius in Luka Doncic. I love that unit a lot. I think that they found something, and I think they even had a better record than the Knicks last year. They were 52-30, and a lot of that
was same record, 50 and 32. That's why because they had their pick, and Jeremy had the joke that's like, because they had to do a coin toss to decide who had 23rd and 25th, 24th and 25th, and the Knicks were going to get
either way. There's no reason to do the coin flip, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of that, again, was because they were hobbled. They had a lot of injuries, right? But so when I'm thinking about the talent and when I think about the cohesion, that's why I'm going with the Dallas Mavericks here with my second pick. Luka Doncic, can't go wrong with that. And all the guys they put around him. They did a really good job from the trade deadline last season, getting Kyrie Irving up until now, of really rebuilding that roster around Luka. So they're going to be my second pick here.
So I also had them behind the Knicks. I will say that. I don't have the Mavericks in my top 9. I think it was like a conversation for 10. And that speaks to how stacked the league is. That speaks to a bit of just use the Western Conference. Like what the the fact that I want to be I've been joking around with Macri on Patreon. Like, I want to be high on the Spurs so bad. Like, the Harrison Barnes edition got Chris Paul. I'm super bullish on Wemby. And I just can't get there to where, like, oh, they could sneak up on you with 45 games and get into the play-in. It's like, they're at best
talent.
12th best team in the conference. The Memphis Grizzlies at full health were a perennial 50-win team in back-to-back years as a 2 seed. And they just weren't factored into a conference last year where the 10th seed won 46 games. So, like, I that's why the Mavericks, when doing what they did, was impressive. I'll give them that. And I'll give them that. They made the finals. Like, of course it was impressive, right? I just wonder, and this is going to play out during the season, if the Clay part of it is the most curious part, because I think he's best suited to come off the bench, and they just haven't found that Derek Jones Jr. replacement, which is why Mark Cuban brought up Quentin Grimes, and a lot of people have brought up Quentin Grimes, as they're going to need a point of attack defender, and it's not Klay Thompson in the year of our Lord 2024. So I look, respect to the team that won the conference. So I'm with you there. I have other ones better, including the team I had listed as number 3. So Mensa, last year in 1,448 possessions, that Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez shared the floor. They were plus 16.3, which is the 99th percentile. Per 100 possessions, they averaged 124.4 points, which is the 97th percentile. And on defense, they allowed 108.1 points per 100 possession, which is the 95th percentile. That's just those 4. And so if the Bucks were to put either Gary Trent Jr. or Taurean Prince at the 2-guard spot, because Malik Beasley is no longer there, they're interchangeable. But I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks as my number 4. I think the year from hell aspect that's been talked about with them last year, between the new head coach, switching your coach midway through the season, if you believe what Dame has said, that he spent no time last offseason working out because he was waiting for a trade to happen and didn't want to get hurt, and then showed up. Mensa, this is why YouTube is great.
Come on.
I'm very bullish on them reminding us why we had them in it's them or the Celtics conversations going into last season. I think the East is much better, especially the top 4 in the East. So I don't have them as like a 60-win team, but their top 5, really their top 4 into top 5 is loaded. And like I remember both XJ and Benji saying to us last year, when I was like, should I be afraid of the Bucks? And they were very high on them going into the playoffs because their 4 best lineups were gangbusters. Like, each of them had like 300 to 400 possessions, which, I mean, you really need to get to 5 to conclude anything. Shout out to XJ for that tidbit. But when you look at their lineups, all of them were great. And I think they're going to be great this year if they get, this is why them lower, I think, makes sense. If they get a modicum of good health this season, which a lot of older players on this roster, between Brook Lopez, between Bobby Portis, between obviously Damian Lillard, I think they're going to be really good. I think this is a team, the Knicks. If you're just saying it's the Knicks in Boston, I'm there with you. It wouldn't shock me if like we're looking up at the All-Star break and it's like, oh, the Bucks are the 1 seed right now. Who knew? You know. So I will go with the Milwaukee Bucks as my 3rd pick.
Very solid 3rd pick. I probably would have had. I have one team ahead of them. It's the team I'm going to take next.
Okay.
But I like the pick a lot. The reason why I didn't go for it is because two of their guys, Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, on the older side, especially with Chris Middleton having all these injury related mishaps as far as like just not being able to play, not playing well. I think it was an ankle or a knee. I'm not too familiar with it. And then I don't really trust who their 5th guy is too much. So that's why I didn't have them in my personal top 5, but really great team. And who could forget the best starting 5 by net rating in the NBA last season was the Milwaukee Bucks, right? If they stay healthy, this feels like their last ride, which is why I really wasn't in favor of them trading for Damian Lillard, because they gave up so much to get him and the window was so small. And then it also, by trading for Damian Lillard, they handed the Boston Celtics the NBA championship because they were able to go then and get a Drew Holiday from the Portland Trailblazers. But really great team. Hard to bet against a team that has Giannis and Damian Lillard in their starting five, two elite All NBA first team level guys. Dame may not ever see another All NBA first team, but the talent there is just ridiculous. So yeah, I really like that pick, but it allows me to then take bitter rival, a team that, my blue and orange Mets blood doesn't allow me to root for because I also hate their baseball team. I'm going to go with the Camden 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers is who I'm going to take here. I just think that they have the most cohesive big three in the league right now. Doesn't really matter who they put next to those two guys. I think it's going to be Kyle Lowry and I don't even know who the fifth guy is going to be honest.
So Oubre and Caleb Martin.
There you go.
I wrote down. Yeah.
Okay. Oubre, Caleb Martin. That works. Caleb Martin's a nice pickup. I do always have like skepticism whenever I see a former Miami Heat member go play for somebody else. It worked out for the Cleveland Cavaliers and Max Strus. You can count on one hand and have fingers left over guys who have left Miami and done well in other situations. So that is something that we'll be looking at. But Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, that is just lights out stuff that they have there. Credit to Daryl Morey for putting that team together. Now, I did have a poll up, I want to say in the last 7 days, asking people who they thought, how many games did they expect for Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid to share the court together? And the most frequent answer was 20 to 40 games, which I think is about right. If they play more than 50, league's cooked. They might go 43-7 in those 50 games. They're really good. But as far as, again, starting fives, we're talking about a starting five that has a ton of talent. They have a guy who probably would have won MVP if he did not get hurt. And then they have Paul George and Tyrese Maxey, guys who can play off the ball, can play with the ball. Really great starting five. Really like that unit a lot. Now, we'll see what happens around the time they have to play in Denver because Embiid hasn't played in Denver in years. And from there, it always seems to go downhill for him. So we'll see what they look like around the All-Star break. But as far as starting fives go, I like them a lot. So I'm going to take them here with my third pick. I believe I took the New York Knicks. We got the Dallas Mavericks and the Philadelphia 76ers rounding out my top three.
Would have been my next pick too. And again, sacrilege. There's an argument that it's better than the Knicks starting five, in my opinion. Again, starting five. I think when they go to Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry off the bench, that's when the Knicks and their uber depth would take precedent. And in crunch time, I just flatly the Maxey part of this is why I can't any slander I want to give of Joel Embiid, who, as much slander as I've given Joel Embiid, we should be acknowledged he averaged like 30, 11, and 6 or whatever, 30, 11, and 5 in that playoff series. I trust Jalen Brunson more in the clutch of a series like that. And like Paul George, I'm just not going to dismiss that he could perform in a playoffs, because we have seen, the playoff P jokes aside, like we have seen him play well in the playoffs before. It's 100% a conversation about health, which is why I voted in your poll and voted the answer that you said was most frequent. And it's why I think you have to look at this team as very top heavy, which to our conversation, I think would rank them high, but they're not going to come up in a depth conversation. If we did best top eights, they're like somewhere around 13, 14, maybe even 15. And it's mostly off the back of their depth. John and I did a duos draft. We do the duos draft every year on Patreon. And we took Maxey and Embiid in the top 10 and didn't take another Sixer duo until like the 40th, 30th round. And it was like, out of respect to Paul George, a second Sixer duo should get taken. So, as far as top heaviness and their starting five, I agree with you. If they get any modicum of health this year, that's a near 60 win team. I do have them as the fourth best team in the conference, though, which I think is the correct place to put them with the expectations for their health. this is where the Knicks conversation comes into play. I had another team that I would have in this conversation for top 7 starting fives. And that's the Minnesota Timberwolves, who I will take next with my pick. This is Anthony Edwards. This is Mike Conley. This is Jaden McDaniels. This is Karl Anthony Towns. And this is Rudy Gobert. Now, the reason why I think they belong down here is similar to the Knicks argument, where you could argue someone on the bench coming in creates a better lineup. The Naz Reid aspect of it, whether he's in for Gobert or in for Cat, is so fascinating because I think that starting 5, and I'll pull up the numbers in a second, I think that starting 5 is really good. And yet I wonder if Naz Reid, I mean, we saw it in that game 7 in Denver, that the Naz Reid lineup on the floor helped them erase a 20-point deficit and end up leading to a victory on the road in game 7. I still can't believe the Nuggets lost that game. But yeah, I'll go a team that was in competition for the 1 seed all season, was tied with the Nuggets at the end of the season last year, got to a conference finals, and in my opinion belongs right here. So, and I'll wrap it up if Cleaning the Glass will officially update with what their lineup, that starting 5's lineup data was last year. The starting 5 of Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert in 1,275 possessions was plus 9.5. Only around the 68th, 68th percentile. And then if you go to defense, it's in between the 60th and 70th percentile, which is why this spot I think is good for them. So I'll go with the Timberwolves, my next pick.
Can I just say, can you pull the numbers up for that same starting 5 from the season prior? Do you have those numbers?
22, 23?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, give Clean the Glass a second.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm asking you to do that is because last offseason, I called it the Timberwolves were going to be this good. A lot of people were very low on Karl. Everybody was sure that Karl Anthony Towns could not play power forward. And I was saying, no, look at the numbers. He only played 32 games, I think, that season, but the numbers of that specific starting 5, I think, was maybe the best lineup in the league. I think it was like 100th percentile, something crazy like that.
So the Taurean Prince instead of Jaden instead of Ant lineups, which is only 113 possessions, so you can't take too much of it, was plus 21. To your point, in 156 possessions of that starting 5 in 22-23, it was plus 5. But they had the 93rd percentile defense. So the defense was gangbusters, which we saw that last year. One of the 3 best defenses, one of the best defenses in the league all year. I think finished top 3 in net rating.
Yes, all that to say is I really love that pick. I may be the Karl Anthony Towns advocate of Knicks Film School. That is a different conversation, but I really like how Cat fits with that team. I think that he is one of the few players in the league that can make a lineup like that work because there just isn't a lot of creation outside of Anthony Edwards there. Mike Conley is getting a little bit older, but we saw that. I mean, I was hoping that they would, because this summer before it even started was like labeled as the summer of Jason Tatum. And I wanted it so bad for Anthony Edwards to win the NBA Finals, get the Finals MVP, and then go win a gold medal, which is essentially what Jason Tatum did, but it would have been the summer of Ant, which would have been amazing. So really like that look a lot. Really, I think that Minnesota could challenge to be the best team in the entire league, depending on if he takes another step forward, Anthony Edwards. I think just watching Anthony Edwards play, he makes in the first round of the playoffs, he had game clinching dunks, like poster dunks. The guy is ridiculous. Just can't say enough about how impressive Anthony Edwards has been, and just has a really good team around him. So like that pick there a lot. But it leaves me the opportunity to take the team that lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Denver Nuggets is where I'm going to go.
That would be my next pick too, which ironically a year ago they would have been number 1 or 2 on my list. And the lack of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, the KCP subtraction changes the perspective on this team a lot.
So they're betting a lot on Christian Braun here and their guys in development. The guys that they're developing. But I don't think that they were the 2 seed, right? They were the 2 seed last season.
3 seed.
3 seed.
Oh no,
okay.
You're right. You're right. The 2 seed, because they played the Lakers, who won. They won the same number of games as the Timberwolves, but they played the Lakers, who won the play-in game.
So this is the Western Conference 2 seed we're talking about, and they could have been even better if the problem with the Denver Nuggets is not the starting five. It's everything after the starting five, right? So a lot like the Philadelphia 76ers, a lot like the Milwaukee Bucks here, where you don't really care for their depth too much, but you're talking about a team that has Nikola Jokic, that has Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. as their top four. Really excellent. I think Christian Brown is going to slot in there and play really well. If there's anybody who I trust with no-name basketball players, it's Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is like 2014 Tom Brady, right? Where I can't tell you who played receiver outside of Julian Edelman for the Patriots that year. And I hate the Patriots, so their names are etched in like a very hateful part of my heart. But Tom Brady was able to elevate them to a new level. Same way Nikola Jokic is just, he plays mistake-free basketball. And I think that is maybe the highest compliment you can give to a player in this league, in this era, where possessions are more frequent and there are so many decisions that you need to be making on an every possession by possession basis. For Nikola Jokic to be as flawless as he is with the ball in his hands pretty much all the time, it elevates that unit to a very special level. And you can never, it's almost like they're the new Spurs, where you talk about every team every year, and you're saying, like not necessarily like the dynastic aspect of it, but in terms of 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, nobody's talking about the Spurs, but they somehow find a way to win 55 and be in the conference finals or further. That's kind of where the Denver Nuggets are in this NBA landscape, where you can never count them out because they have Nikola Jokic. So I'm going to pick them fourth here. A lot of it is due to off the strength of Nikola Jokic, and they've just done it before. We've seen them get to conference finals. We've seen them win a title. I really like this team here, so I'm going to take the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, the tough part with evaluating the Nuggets is I agree with everything you said about Jokic and the plug and place of just put him next to. He's like how we evaluated the Warriors like we do Coors Field in baseball, where it's like, oh, you had a great year, but you played there. Like you played in that team. Like playing with Jokic, it feels like it's also like a cheat code or an anabolic enhancer, a performance enhancer. And it's why I think KCP in Orlando will be successful. I think he was the perfect fit there. If they have a gangbusters net rating again this season, and to remind people, last year in the NBA, I'll get the lineup data, but that starting five with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was, as Mensa said, one of the best in the NBA. In fact, as I get to it, it played the most together in the NBA. So 1,923 possessions. It's the most of any lineup combination according to Cleaning the Glass, and plus 13.0 of those, with as much as those lineups played together. The Christian Braun wild card is just that, a wild card, and they have a lot of young players. I know they brought in Russ, maybe that helps the bench, but there's no Russell Westbrook coming in to the starting five and fixing things. So I'm with you though. This would have been around where I would have put the Nuggets. So we're through the top 8, which gives me a number 9th pick in this draft, which is my last team, and I will take the Phoenix Suns with my next pick. With my last pick, I should say. Did you know, Mensa, that the lineup of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, Kevin Durant, and Jusuf Nurkic last season played 1,044 possessions and was plus 10.4 when had a 124.7 offensive rating, which is good for the 75th percentile. If you subbed out Grayson Allen for Eric Gordon, they was even better, plus 11.9. And now they have Tyus Jones potentially in the mix if they want to go to lineups like that. The big one is if they want to take Nurkic off the floor. There's this other lineup they had that's in the 90s. It's only 100 possessions, but it's in the 92nd percentile. It was plus 27. There's a health and an age factor with this group.
KD at the 5.
KD at the 5 obviously is their version of a death lineup if they want to go to it. I think we should remember they won 49 games last year. Like all the evaluations we have for the Knicks and how great how fun last season was and how high we're projecting them. won one less game than the New York Knicks last season, like in a loaded Western Conference. I know they got swept out the first round. John made a good point on Patreon. People should sign up for our Patreon. Despite how winning 49 games and the strong surge they had at the end of the season, that was a team that really didn't like its coach, and Loki quit on him. And that was the sign of a team has fully given up on their coach when they got swept out the playoffs. And there's a world where Mike Budenholzer has more of a hold on this team and they get the new coach bump. And it wouldn't surprise me if we're sometime in March and it's like, oh, the Phoenix Suns are on pace for 55 wins and a 2 or 3 seed. So I'm not going to completely rule them out. Going into last season, I was high on them going in, and then the health of it all, and that's I think what separates some of these lineups is like if you're healthy, I'm high on you. I don't know how healthy you're going to be, but I'll go to the Phoenix Suns with my last pick.
Great last pick there. Yeah, really solid last pick. I think it's going to be Tyus Jones in the starting 5, correct? Is that how we have it projected?
No, so I have it as what I said: Durant, Booker, Beal, Allen, Nurkic. He's going to come off the bench.
Okay. Yeah, because I had them with Tyus Jones in the starting lineup there, which is why I would have taken a different team there, with the team I'll take next, which is probably going to shock everybody. But yeah, I like the Phoenix Suns a lot. I'll take the world.
I'll just add, I went by ESPN.com's depth chart and that's just
totally fair.
Buy your depth chart is what I'll take. If they trot out a Tyus Jones lineup, we will come back and re-record this pod on the second day of the season after we find out what the Suns' opening night starting 5 is. Okay.
I'm not sure they're that important to us over at Knicks Film School. But yeah, I think the world of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker, if you like pure hoops, go watch Devin Booker play basketball. He is as pure as it gets on the offensive end, and just his willingness to sacrifice on the Olympic team, which got him put in the game ahead of a guy like a Jason Tatum, who's arguably more talented than him, but just being willing to do it all. Going into his 10th season. Wow, Devin Booker's been in the NBA a long time. Just the way he continues to grow and mature as a basketball player. And then, Bradley Beal is probably in the perfect role for him and, as a third option for this team. But his health has been a concern the past few seasons. If we were doing a different list for all NBA first team ski mask, Bradley Beal would be my first pick. He is stealing money in terms of production versus the dollar that he's actually getting paid. Shout out to him. Let me be very clear. The money you make is the money you have earned, and I do not begrudge Bradley Beal for signing any contract. I'm just saying, for a guy who's making $50 million a year, you probably want a little bit more production. That's all I'm saying here. But yeah,
real quick, the last thing I'll say about the Suns, the trio of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant on the court last year, which is 1,700 possessions, 766 to be exact. Plus 7.5, and they had a 60.4 effective field goal percentage. Now,
that's awesome.
You could score on this team. You could absolutely score when those three are on the court, which is why what they surround them with will be interesting. But offensively, that's one of the best three-man trios in the NBA. And I'll take them with my last pick.
100%. So yeah, I guess that leaves me with my final pick. I'm going to take the Fred Katz Memorial Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay. I like Cleveland a lot. I'm not buying the weird season they had last year. I do believe that both Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are better suited on the ball, and you may have some diminishing returns there. I also believe that they're diminishing returns with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen both playing at the 4 and 5 together, but the talent is just so high there, and they're still so young. I think the oldest guy they're going to be starting is Max Strus. Max Strus and Donovan Mitchell, I think they're like 28, 29. You still have a guy like Darius Garland, who's young. Evan Mobley, who's in his 4th season. Jared Allen, who they stole in that trade with the James Harden trade. They just got themselves involved and got one of the better centers in the NBA. Really, really high on that unit. Love Donovan Mitchell. Think he plays great basketball. So I think it's going to be Garland, Spida, Strus, Mobley, and Jared Allen. And it kind of feels like we're waiting on the Evan Mobley breakout. It should be happening within the next 2 seasons. So I'm going to buy that it happens this year. I think Evan Mobley takes a leap defensively. He's already an outstanding defender. And I just think this is a good team. It's a really good, solid unit. I think that gives us, I think we have 5 and 5, 5 Eastern Conference, 5 Western Conference teams. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm going with them. I'm buying. I had them as my 1 seed last season. Didn't really work out for them. They had some really nefarious behavior towards the end of the season where they're ducking smoke just so they can get to the second round of the playoffs, and they barely made it there. But I think they have a rebound season. I think Darius Garland plays a lot better. I think that they're settling into their roles. They're a young team. We saw that ourselves with Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, guys who are still figuring out how to be effective in the NBA. Quickly figured it out faster than RJ Barrett, to be honest. But it still goes to show that young guys don't always fit into their roles because they're trying to, build their careers, get paid, that sort of stuff. I think Cleveland has a really solid unit. I really like their coach, JB Bickerstaff. I think he's been around the league a long time and has earned his right to coach this team. And he's been there for a little while now. So I'm buying the continuity there. I'm buying that they figure it out, the spacing and everything. So I'm going to take the Cleveland Cavaliers here.
So it's interesting. The Mobley aspect of this changes whatever he becomes. Like, he's already one of the best defensive players in the league, right? He's already one of the best. I mean, impact is probably not the best way to measure here, but if you want to go to that, he's extremely impactful. But the shooting is always going to be what he needs to develop to take that next step, both for him and then for the Cavs. Like, they really need him to become not a full stretch four, but like, Randall's not a great shooter, but he has gravity that matters. You're going to need to develop something if you're Evan Mobley, so that way you can justify being on the court with Allen at the same time, which is why, like, around here is where I would have put the Cavs. It's either them or a couple honorable mentions that I'll bring up in a second. But I know my second home over at the Chase Down wouldn't like this, but I remain curious and honestly more confused by what the Cavs are, because, like you said, there's a ton of talent, and on paper it should make sense. I love Max Strus is the perfect addition to the core four that they have over there with him or Okoro as that fifth option. The ceiling just seems very clear to me, and it's right below those big four in the top. And you could even tell me that, like, honorable mentions, you could tell me the Pacers finished ahead of them. You could tell me the Orlando Magic finish ahead of them. There's options if you wanted to go to. I think around here is respectfully where they should be, though. They should have made our top 10, which is good. I mentioned the Pacers. I mentioned the Magic. Do you have any other starting five honorable mentions?
Just so that we don't upset anybody in the great state of Tennessee, the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes. They have been riddled with injuries, and it's already started again with G.G. Jackson getting hurt. But, I mean, you got Ja Morant, you got Jaren Jackson Jr., you got Desmond Bane. You should be able to figure it out. If all three of those guys are healthy, I think they're going to be right back where they were. Maybe not a top 4 team in the Western Conference, because just if you are not, like, actively improving your roster, you're falling behind the competition. And Memphis kind of feels like they've continued to bet on those 3 guys. And I mean, Ja Morant is turning 25 this year, right? And I think he already turned 25. He'll be 26 next season. They're still young. There's still a lot of room for improvement for them. But and then I just really like watching Ja Morant play basketball. So that would be my honorable mention. I would have them behind the Orlando Magic, who I really like, just because I think that 2028, two of the Olympians should be Jalen Suggs and Paolo Banchero. I do think they should be on that team. Really like where they're growing, where they're going, and then the Jonathan Isaac of it all. Even though he has some health issues, they've been able to figure the contract out. So those two would be my honorable mentions ahead of the Indiana Pacers, who I will not get into for obvious biases that I may or may not have. But those would be my 2 honorable mentions: the Memphis Grizzlies and the Orlando Magic.
And I'll add the Kings, because I'm really fascinated by that fit.
2 All NBA players: DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Huerter.
They may end up being the 9 seed, and they have so much talent. That starting 5, they may score. They may lead the league in offensive rating this year. They may also, be a top top 8 offensive rating, and have one of the worst defenses in the league, which is why they end up with 46, 47 wins this year. So I'll add the Kings. Keegan Murray.
Keegan Murray could be a real swing player for them.
The other aspect of it is why their starting 5 probably is an honorable mention, but not necessarily. It's good they didn't make our lists because their best lineup probably would include Malik Monk, who's not going to start for them. Like Kevin Huerter is going to start, or Keon Ellis is going to start for them, and they're looking at their closing lineup is probably a better conversation. So, all right, those are our top 5s. I'll just read them through real quick. My 5 are Boston, OKC, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Phoenix. Mensa had the Knicks as his number 1, which was number 2, and then Dallas, Philly, Denver, and Cleveland. So by our calculations, the Knicks do have a top 10 starting 5. And I think on an aggregate, they would have a top 5. Obviously, you putting them at number 2, I'd probably have them top 6. So we'll average it out to like a top 3 or 4 starting 5. Your final thoughts, Mensa, on the Knicks going into this season. Take the starting 5 aspect out of it. Your thoughts on the Knicks going into this year.
Like you said, really excellent chance that this team has maybe the best top 8 in basketball between them and Oklahoma City. I would say one thing that I did want to touch on is there's kind of no excuse for Tom Thibodeau to not at least try the Julius Randle at the 5 lineups, because you could put Josh Hart at the 2, Mikal at the 3, OG at the 4, and field a great defense, right? You may not have the same rim protection that you would have with, a traditional big there, but the team has Leon Rose has put together such an excellent unit that he has options of what he could throw out there. So, and I do believe that playing Julius at the 5 will unlock so much, because you have the guy right now who's slotted to get the minute squeeze is Donte DiVincenzo. And Donte DiVincenzo last season was the most prolific 3-point shooter in New York Knicks history. So we don't want him to get the squeeze. I'd rather the squeeze come on guys like Precious Achiuwa or Jericho Sims or whoever the backup big is. Ideally for me, you would give Mitchell Robinson would get 28 minutes and Julius Randle will get the other 20. Or maybe that's a bit extreme, 12 to 15 minutes at the center, because that allows you to operate with more Donte DiVincenzo, more threes, more spacing, really good defense on the perimeter there from Donte, who had a down season for himself defensively, which I expect him to rebound on that end. But I think that the amount of minutes Julius Randle plays at the 5 will be like a 3 or 4 win swing for the New York Knicks. I still have them as a top 2, top 3 starting 5 in the NBA between Boston, Oklahoma City, and themselves. I think those are the 3 best starting 5s in the game. But as far as what we can expect, I think we can expect this team to hit the ground running from day one. And I think we can expect to see a lot more Josh Hart at the 2 than people would probably like to see. But a lot of that is because we'll be seeing more Julius at the 5. And there has to be compromise, right? Tom Thibodeau is going to want to play his 3 best defenders, his 3 best non-center defenders. And I think those guys are OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart. So you put those 3 guys on the court, you put Jalen at the 1, you put Josh at the 5, and we know how good the Josh Hart at the 2 lineups work. I would love to see it. And I think that this year we should expect to see more Julius at the 5 and watch what that does for the evolution of Tom Thibodeau as a coach and the evolution of the New York Knicks as a title contender.
So I'm trying to find it. I don't know if they played enough possessions last year, but here it is. The Hartenstein, Randall, Anunoby, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson lineups last year. Because this is part of the January renaissance that we saw. And look, how often Josh Hart plays is just the thing that gets talked about entirely too much by a lot of us in the Knicks circles. But that lineup I just mentioned was plus 56.8 in the 87 possessions that it plays.
Ridiculous.
There's a good chance it's really good is what happens when Josh Hart plays at the 2. And there's also a good chance when DiVincenzo plays at the 2 is going to be really good. And I think that's the beauty of what the Knicks have built is their depth is going to give a lot of really good options. And like nitpicking the bad moments of the really good options, it's why I think the Warriors 2015 team that had like the death lineup we all go to that I've brought up a ton, it was the 5th most used lineup. Like over the course of a full season, I agree with you, like 2 or 3 wins here and there. we have playoff expectations now. Like if this if this ends up being a 4 seed, I still like them against any team that they face in the playoffs. And I'd love to be a 1 seed. I'd love to be a top team and get home court throughout, especially with what the Garden and the advantage that can bring. I'm just like, I think there's going to be a lot of really good options for them to use this year. I think it's going to be really fun to watch both their starting 5 in the context of the conversation we had today and just the whole team, and different versions of their starting 5 when guys go down, because the next man up is also going to be a really good option. Okay, Mensa. This was fun. Any final thoughts, Mensa, before we get out of here? I've asked you that twice now. I'm just going to wrap up. If that's okay. I'm going to fix all of this in post. Yeah.
Go Mets, go Jets. Garrett Wilson to the future. And I wish you the worst this week in fantasy football.
Oh, I'm playing you week 1. Oh, well, I reciprocate that. I wish you the worst and send it right back to you, my friend. What's your team name?
Any Quinn and Sunday.
Any Quinn and Sunday against Mike Vick in a box this weekend. So I don't know if we'll let you know how we do. I'm sure on social we'll let you know how we do. But thank you everybody for tuning in to the first Friday 5. I believe we're calling this Friday Top 5. 5 on a Friday. Name pending for here at Knicks Film School. We'll be back next weekend with another Friday 5. Again, name pending. My thank you to Mensa for joining me. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're watching, and remember to give this video a like. If you're listening, please leave a 5-star rating and a review. Until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Let's go Knicks, and I'll speak with you soon. Peace.